Welcome to this week's Dragonblade Authors Unplugged. You have no idea how excited I am this week. I get to talk to Kathryn Veque and Barbara Devlin. It's the greatest thing ever. I've been waiting for like a week and a half for this to happen. So I'm very, very excited. Thank you, ladies, for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, definitely. Thanks for asking.
Right. Okay. Well, Barbara, can we start with you since you're on the screen? And your book is The Accidental Groom, and it's the second book in the Mad Matchmaking Men of Waterloo. Love the series title for that one. And I and I love what you do with your heroes. Can you tell us a little bit about your book and about why this hero is particularly special?
This is the second in the series, as you said. It is a departure from the first one in that the first one focused more on actual disability and learning to cope with disability. This one gets more into the mental aspects, which is where I'm going from here on out. Specifically, this one, survivor's guilt, which is something I experienced after a drunk driver almost ended my life, but definitely ended my world as I knew it. It's a very personal book, and I think the only way that I could share these feelings and these sentiments has been by voicing them through a fictional character. That is my self-preservation mechanism, although it has been much more gut-wrenching than I expected it to be.
Yeah, I saw you had posted on Facebook about how difficult this book was to write. And I can imagine when you have to tap in, to write, you have to be honest enough with your feelings to feel what your characters feel. And to tap into that, I imagine, brings up a lot of things that maybe even you weren't expecting to come out of the process.
You are right about that. I honestly, as I put in that post, I honestly thought that by writing about all of this through characters in a long ago era, that separation would be enough to protect myself and insulate myself from any of the negative aspects. And it wasn't. It was almost like re-traumatizing myself to an extent. Part of it was cathartic. Part of it was incredibly painful. Some of the old nightmares cropped up again. And I think that's where the honesty comes in about PTSD. The reason I don't, quote unquote, cure my heroes at the end of their books is because PTSD cannot be cured. And every day that I wake up, I face the ongoing battle to not look back, to not focus on the person that I used to be, the abilities I used to have, and the life that I had. I have to keep looking forward, and it is a struggle. It is a constant struggle that I will deal with until I'm dead. I just have learned that.
I think that strength to keep turning towards the life you want instead of the life you thought you were going to have is something that people handle, with big traumas and with little traumas. That idea that we can scrabble and hold on to what we thought it was going to be, or we can continue to turn towards what we
exactly.
Yeah.
That desire is overwhelming to cling to the past, to remember. I used to be a marathon runner.
Yeah.
Distance running has been a part of my life since middle school. And the last time I ran was the night before the accident because I was in training for another marathon. And so I would do nightly 8-mile runs. I would do 16-mile runs every Saturday. I would take Sunday off and then Monday start all over again, 8-mile runs. And I can't run across the street now. I can't run down a driveway. I can't run at all. I have a lingering condition called drop foot. It's from the sciatic nerve being severed in my left leg. The femur was crushed. The quad muscle was crushed. I lost 76% of the quad muscle on my left leg. It is dead tissue. It doesn't give. It's not flexible. I notice it the most when I take vacations or I'm at conferences and I'm on my feet much longer. That dead scar tissue tends to tear and bruise. I get bruising all up under my leg and it hurts. And then it decreases the circulation to my left foot. So then my left foot swells. And I have been on vacation with Mike. In fact, when we were in Italy, where he had to cut off the shoe that I had on my foot because my foot swelled so hard, we couldn't get it off.
Oh, no.
Couldn't get the shoe off. So we ended up having to borrow these heavy shears from the hotel, and he had to cut the shoe off my foot and then get ice packs from the hotel. And we just spent an afternoon in our room icing down my leg just to try to get my foot to a normal size. And then had to go shoe shopping, which hurt me, shoe shopping. That's definitely the silver lining, but it's something that's ever present. It's something that haunts me continuously. And it always crops its ugly head at the worst possible moments. I had some trouble at HRR and I learned to deal with it. I package, I have 2 sets of the same pair of shoes. And I have one that's half a size larger to accommodate my left foot when my leg swells. Nobody knows that. I mean, nobody's going to know I'm wearing 2 different sizes of shoes unless I take the daggum shoes off and show them. It's easy for me to hide and to cope with it in that way. But I still have to deal with it.
So one of the reasons I was so excited to talk to you today, for everybody who's watching, is I was lucky enough to meet you in Colorado in 2018, and you were without a doubt one of the most inspirational people I've ever met. And I love it when people not when people Mary Sunshine their way through things, but when they continue to find the things to be grateful for and the good things that are there. And you were one of those people who did that. You were also wildly funny, but incredibly inspirational. So it's like, and then when I had a chance to meet you at HRR again, it was like, well, this is just the coolest thing ever. So
it was a lot of fun. And I remember the dinner we went to, and some of these so sophisticated authors at the other end got up and walked out because we were laughing a little too hard. And
we were at the
I
good
don't
end of the
apologize
table.
for that. We had a blast. We had so much fun at that dinner, and we ended up damn near closing the place down. And I make no apologies for that. Life is precious. I don't hide from anything anymore. I'm going to say what I think, what I feel, when I think it and feel it. And if you don't like it, well, that's just too damn bad.
So having this series with these characters that have all had challenges of their own and are dealing with it in different ways, do you know when you're starting what kind of heroine you want to put with them? Do you know what's the genesis of the story for you?
What's interesting to this whole series for me is the duality of it. The heroes are definitely me. They're different aspects of me. They're different parts of my journey. And I have to emphasize, no 2 journeys are the same. Everybody experiences and deals with PTSD in their own private way. This is reflective of my journey that is still ongoing. I am still a work in progress. If anything, my heroines reflect the strength of my husband, Mike. That's the duality. There were so many things that Mike did for me, things that nobody else could have done, not my sisters, not my father. There is a different dynamic to an interpersonal relationship between a man and a woman, woman and a woman, man and a man. When it's a romantic relationship, when it's your life partner and not these familial blood ties, it's a very different aspect. And Mike saw sides of me that nobody else could see. And I'm working on book 3 right now. And book 3 also explores the mental aspect, because that's where you go the injury's at the beginning. And yes, while you're coping with recovering from the injury, but what you really get involved in and you really delve into is the mental aspect of dealing with the injury and the recovery. And And in book 3 right now, I am delving into the aspect of when you are putting on the happy face, you are trying to fool yourself and everyone else around you into thinking that you're okay, that nothing's wrong. I had a little personal mantra. I have never shared this before, and you're going to laugh, and I'm okay with that. I have a personal mantra. I still use it to this day, just in a different, wildly different aspect, but it was a means of getting myself through, of getting myself up and out of bed and dressed and going through another day. And I would literally stand in front of a mirror and say, I am a hot tamale. I am a hot tamale. I am a hot tamale.
I love that so much.
Mike still calls me to this day his little hot tamale.
Oh, that's perfect.
I could fool myself right up until someone said, oh my gosh, are you okay? You don't look so good. And that would completely cut my legs out from under me. I was fooling myself. I was not okay. I just couldn't see it because I was so mired in the middle of it and I was drowning. Initially, like Rawdon in book 2, survivor's guilt. Why did I survive this? Had I been killed, my family would have got all these big payouts. You know, I would have had this hero's funeral. They would have posthumously given me the police cross. You know, instead they took my badge and gun, forced me to retire, and showed me to the door. And nothing could have hurt me worse in that vulnerable state than having my own department turn its back on me. That betrayal to this day is salt in the wound. I will never be okay with that.
Because you were injured in the line of duty.
Line of duty, working an accident, on foot. Drunk driver slides off the roadway and pins me between the car and the guardrail. I was not in any way at fault. If anything, I did exactly as I was supposed to do. I had everyone in the original accident still in their vehicle. So I was the one who got injured the worst. That's what's supposed to happen when you're a police officer. You're there to possibly lay down your life for others. That's your sense of service. You swear to that. That meant something to me. And of course, all throughout the academy, it's drained into your head, just pushed into your head, beat into you, that they will always take care of you, that the department, that's in exchange for you being willing to make the ultimate sacrifice, the department will take care of you, or if necessary, your loved ones, your survivors. That didn't happen for me. I got shown to the door and, you know, a sergeant said, you know, you earned this. You've earned your medical retirement. I'm like, earn this? What am I supposed to do now? Just sit at home watching TV and eating bonbons? I mean, that was the reality I was facing, along with, you know, extensive physical therapy. And it damn near broke me. And so I initially was mired in this thought that everybody would be better off without me. And I pushed Mike away at every opportunity. And he just kept coming back. And that's why you see in book 2, even though Rawdon tries to deny himself the fact that he cares about Patience, Patience stays right there.
Yeah.
She stays
what a
right
perfect
there.
name for that kind of heroine, too.
What's interesting is when I started developing her in book 1, when she came out in book 1, and you saw some interaction between her and Rawdon in book 1, I had so much fun playing those two off each other. I knew then they were book 2. They just spoke to me and they spoke to each other. And I went, okay, here's my couple for book 2.
Awesome.
So that's what I did.
Awesome.
And that's how book 2 came about.
Well, I'm so looking forward to this one. And so for everybody who's watching, Barbara's books launch, Barbara's like Kathryn's books launch wide. So if you read on Barnes & Noble or Apple, you want to grab it right now because it'll go into Kindle Unlimited very soon. So you want to grab them, right away. Well, I'm excited about that. And I'm excited about the next book in the series as well. And And I think, like, I was thinking that this was probably the longest that Kathryn stayed quiet in a Zoom meeting.
When we get together, it's usually like a hen party.
I know.
So
Like, I
she's
was
being
figuring I was
very,
going to get
very
a
sweet
word,
to
maybe
me.
two.
I promise I'm gonna be just as quiet.
The problem is when I walk into a room, I kind of take over the room. So that's why I'm being really quiet.
No. I was really hoping that we were going to get lots of talking from
Barbara
the two of you. So.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. Trust me, this is not over yet. But I want to make a comment about this. So I have known Barbara for many years, and when I first met her, and she told me about her story, she would not tell other people about it. She kept it very quiet. Barb, you remember this?
Yes.
You were very
yes.
quiet about it, and you wouldn't tell anybody. I was like, why are you not talking about this? Because, okay, let's talk about Barbara Devlin here, because I am going to give her praise and accolades when she won't do it herself. But Barbara has a PhD. You have 2 PhDs, right?
2.
She has 2 PhDs. So what she did when she got out of when she got the golden handshake from, the police department, she took the money that she got and she went to school and she became a college professor and she got 2 PhDs. This woman has done more things in her lifetime than anybody you know. I mean, and she continues to excel and do these wonderful, magnificent things. She writes so amazing. I cannot even praise her enough, the way she writes, because she understands what she's doing. She gets it. Mm-hmm. And not only that, I mean, she does this, and I'm sorry, Barb, but I'm going to give this away. She's going through health problems that no sane person on this planet goes through, and stays cheerful and positive like she does. I mean, and she is somebody that is to be admired like you have never admired anybody in your life. So that's why I stayed quiet, because I wanted to hear her talk, because there is nobody on this planet like Barb Devlin, and I just can't say enough about her and how much I love her. And I'm sorry, Barb, I know I'm embarrassing you, but I just want to say that you are just, she has always been just such a magnificent person to me. But I will also say this. When she and I are in a room, I'm lucky if I get to say 3 words, because she talks more than anybody I have ever been around in my life. But that's okay, because she always has something to say, and she's from Texas, and she's just warm-hearted. So yeah, I love sitting in a room with her and just listening to her go on and on and on. And
I love you too.
We talk about tamales. You're going to tell them that I asked how to make a small batch of tamales. Now her family makes fun of me for that. But that's okay.
Small batch of tamales is an oxymoron.
But I didn't know that. I asked Barb, I'm like, can you ask your dad how I can make like a small batch of, because her dad has great recipes, how I can make a small batch of tamales. And apparently that turned into just like the whole family's like, who is this woman?
You're never going to live that down.
I know, it's okay. I don't care. It's okay. But anyway, so yeah, you want to talk about my book now?
Yeah, I would love to talk about your book. Your book, it's Master of the Dawn. In my head, it's been Mater of the Dawn, because Sean typed it with the wrong without the S. And in my head, it's been Mater of the Dawn for like a week and a half now. But
that would be a very different book.
It would be quite different. But yes,
it's a Durain domination book, the 5th book in the series.
It is. I have several. I think I counted it once. I have more now, but I have 35 major houses, and this is one of the major houses, and it's one that I've always liked. And the first book in that series is called Guardian of Darkness. And this family, they're very dutiful knights, and they serve, earls and kings and that kind of thing. So this book in particular is a secondary character in Guardian of Darkness, and he was best friends with the hero from that book, his youngest brother who died. So we knew that the youngest brother died in battle. So this book actually goes into their friendship, and we actually do experience his death in battle, which is something that I don't shy away from, much as Barbara doesn't shy away from her experiences and infusing her characters with personal experience. I am one of these people that has never shied away from anything rough or brutal or controversial, but I also write medieval romance, and I have a little more leeway than a lot, like for example, Regency. The things I do in medieval romance, you could not do in Regency. You absolutely could not do it, you know. And what's interesting is that I tried to do that. So, because just funny side note, I wrote a duet with Alexa Aston, and
Sing like Flynn.
Thin Like Flynn, that's right. And it was a, you know, just a novella. It was 25,000 words, I think. But I started doing things in that book that you do in a medieval book, and it's perfectly fine. And my editor said to me when he got it, he goes, you know what? This is an awesome book. I love this. I was like, really? He's like, yeah, for a medieval romance, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I don't know. So I had to go back, and I had to really, you know, make it really within the guidelines of the day. And I knew better, but I thought, ooh, maybe I can get away with this. But yeah, no, I didn't. But anyway, you know, so Master of the Dawn is, you know, we start out with battle, and we're always having battle, and we have knights and their hijinks, and we have knights who like to play jokes on one another. So on the feast after the battle, the kid, he's not a kid, he's a younger brother, the knight who ends up dying later in the book, he's going around cutting garters so that guys' pants are falling down. I mean, it's just this kind of funny stuff, you know. And of course, the heroine comes up and she sees these bare butts, and she's like, what is going on here, you know? So it's just, there's a lot of humor in the book. There's a lot of, you know, tragedy in the book as well. But I find that kind of balance really does well, because you've got readers who they're reading it and they're like, oh, this is hilarious, and it really sucks them in, and then they're invested in the characters, and then the characters suffer tragedy, and everybody's like, oh, you know, I had to have 5 boxes of Kleenex for this book, which to me is a success.
Yeah, and that's the honest part of the emotions of both, you know. It's like being able to find the sweet spot between.
It is. But you know, whereas Barbara has a lot of personal experience to draw on, you know, I don't have that kind of experience. So what I do is stuff that, you know, in my own life, humor. And yes, we have suffered some tragedy this year. This year has been a really crappy year for me. So, you know, I'm able to really draw on those kinds of emotions. And hopefully that makes it a more readable book. It makes it a book that really people can relate to.
Yeah. I want both.
Yeah.
You know, I as a reader, I want both. I want to be able to laugh, and I want to be emotionally invested in the characters, and
oh yeah.
Like I want both. So
I do too. But you know, you brought up something interesting when we were talking before we started recording, and that was, what were the books that drew us into reading romance in the first place? And the books that drew me in were Virginia Henley's books, without question. And she is old school. She's a bodice ripper. Bertrice Small, total bodice ripper.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I mean, Barbara goes back a really long time, and I think she knew these ladies way back in the day. Didn't you, Barb? I mean,
yes, even Kathleen Woody Weiss. I cut my teeth on Shanna, which is my all-time favorite.
Yep. So I find it really, you know, interesting, because I think, at least in my case, I love to read that kind of raw, really emotional, maybe not necessarily politically correct romances, you know, where you have that alpha male and he's ripping clothes off of her, and, you know, and of course nowadays you really can't do that kind of thing. You know, you really can't. It's a different kind of reader. It's a different kind of reader nowadays than it was years ago. But I like to write that stuff that's very impactful and very, you know, a lot of adventure, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of, you know, he's grabbing her by the hair. You know, I'm sorry, I just do, because that's what I read, and that's what I like to read. And a lot of my demographics are people that like to read that stuff too. So, you know, they kind of find a new author in me, you know. But you know, those ladies, I mean, Bertrice has left us, but Virginia's still around, you know. She's a wonderful lady.
I think we're still doing some of that. We're just doing it in things like bully romance and mafia romance and things like that.
Yes.
You know, like the desire for that kind of turn up the volume on the relationship thing is still there. We just dress it differently now than when we first started.
We do. But one of the things that I have found that that we really, and I'm going to talk as a publisher now, that we really can't publish is, and Evelyn knows that, and so does Barbara, but it's kind of the domestic violence. You know, you can't, it's like, where do you draw the line with that? I mean, I'm sorry, but there are a lot of readers who really do like it when the hero picks up the heroine and tosses her on the bed, you know, but slapping her or doing that kind of thing, you know, that's kind of where we have to draw the line, because you can't romanticize abuse.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's one woman out there that wouldn't like some good looking muscular guy to grab her and throw her on the bed. I mean, you know, who doesn't want that? So it's really an interesting balance that we do these days.
Yeah. Well, and I think remembering that there are things that we want to explore when we're reading, you know, and we want to explore with our minds that are not things we would ever want to explore in real life, or, you know, like that's just, that's the reason we fantasize and tell stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. So Barbara, what did you start reading what helped you fall in love with the genre? What did you start reading first?
Kathleen Woody-Weiss. I mean, I read every dadgum book by her, and her books, I mean, women get slapped, women get spanked, the heroes cheat.
Well, spanking is an entirely different thing from slapping.
Yeah, that's different.
So that's different.
I mean, it's something else. And here lately, I've been on a Joanna Lindsay kick. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I just decided to read Joanna Lindsay.
Yeah.
I had read her before, but there was some things that I had never read. So I went back and looked at all the stuff that I had not read. And wow, I mean, kidnappings and just all kinds of stuff. And yet she still remains one of the biggest names in the canon. And just like Kathleen Woody-Weiss. And I think there are a lot of themes in those books that are problematic today. We look on them differently, but you have to view them in the context of the time period when they were written, and the what was considered acceptable then. And of course you can say, oh, well, domestic violence is never acceptable. No, it's not. But it was considered an acceptable trope in fictional books.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can really judge them harshly by today's standards. There were also things that were correct to the period. Women who were raped, women who were taken as slaves during the medieval time. Kat, you know that better than anyone.
I've written about that. That is in my books. And I'll tell you something, there's one book in particular where
I know that book.
It opens up with a literal rape, but it is in the context of conquest. That is historically accurate. You know what? If you don't like it, don't read that first chapter. Sorry.
It's historically accurate. It's like you can't whitewash it. The entire saying, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Well, it happened. It's actually legitimate discourse. And so you really have to consider that if you're going to do a faithful representation of the period.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, why would you even write in that period? Why would you read that period?
Right. Exactly.
Which is the reason that the medieval books are rougher than the Regency ones, because the time period was rougher. Yeah.
Oh boy. Yes, they are. Yes, they
are. Way rougher. What's interesting is I've been lambasted for my medieval books, which are the only ones I have are my original Templar Knights for my Brethren of the Coast series. And in those books, those Templar Knights are all virgins because Templars were taught that sexual activity, even masturbation, could result in blindness, deafness, the loss of speech, idiocy, lunacy, and could be revisited on future generations if they married and had heirs.
Right.
So it's not just you that's paying the price, it's everybody that comes after you.
Everybody after you.
It's really weird rule.
You expect me to believe they didn't masturbate? Yes, I do expect you to believe that. Believe me, the research that I've done, what they were taught, they were chaste, they were pure. So it is a real shock to the system when the king demands that they marry and produce offspring. And you've got men who know nothing about sex. And for me, it was a lot of fun writing that. But for some readers, oh, I can't, but you expect me to believe that a man, doesn't masturbate. I'm like, don't compare these men from the 14th, 13th and 14th centuries. Don't compare these men to modern day, because it's a completely different context.
And yeah, I mean, they wouldn't even bathe, because
No.
that was considered a sin, because you had to strip down, and I mean, you couldn't do that. You couldn't have any contact or visual contact with your genitalia. So yeah, I mean, it was really considered a sin. So yeah, crazy stuff.
And the weight that it takes then when you do have a hero and heroine come together, when there hasn't been any of that before, it's that's a big heady thing to play with.
It is. It really
It's a
is.
lot of fun to play with.
No pun intended.
It's a whole lot of fun to play with.
Barb said play with.
Hey, I'm married. I ain't lying about that.
That's right. That's right. Me too.
And I married a firefighter. Come on. I mean, you want to talk sexy and alpha males. There is nothing like a firefighter.
They make calendars about those guys.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It's not a myth.
Mm-mm. No. Before I married my husband, I dated a firefighter for 4.5 years. He was paramedic, and he was a calendar boy, and he was hot. He looked like Tom Selleck, but was he messed up. Yeah, I did not marry him. Yeah, but he was cute. He was good to look at, but woo.
That's part of wanting certain things and not wanting other
things.
That's
That's right. You know exactly what you want and what you don't, and that's not what you wanted. So yeah. Barb got lucky.
Yes. Although somehow I managed to marry the only firefighter known to humanity who does not cook.
What?
Oh no.
Oh.
Miss Chicken is the best.
Thank you. Most firefighters, I mean, I'm talking guys who can make, dinner rolls from scratch.
Yeah.
Migas for Saturday breakfast. I mean, I was shocked. All Mike knows how to do is the cleanup.
Well, that counts. That's
useful. Yeah. That's useful. Yes,
that's the rule in our household. I cook, he cleans.
So, ladies, how did you get from reading to starting to write? What was the thing that made you start to sit down and tell the stories yourselves?
I'm going to start first, because Barbara will tell her a very, very long story. So I'm going to go first. So I get to go first this time. You know what? I've been writing since I was 13. It has just always been, I always have concocted stories. And when I realized that if I actually wrote them down, they weren't lies, because I was telling stories that, they weren't true. I started when I was 13, and I never stopped. And the reason why I went to romance was because I literally read Bertrice Small and Virginia Henley and those ladies. And I thought, you know what? This makes me feel good. This makes me happy. I love the happily ever afters. Yeah. And that's how I got into it.
Yeah. Yeah. That happily ever after, that's a huge thing.
It is. It is. It is. It was for me. Barb?
I will keep this short and sweet. I started out writing historical fiction, but like Kat, I think I was born a storyteller, because I've always written journals, diaries, you name it. I've always been a writer. I started out with historical fiction because that's what I love to read, and then slowly moved into historical romance after attending RWA, my first RWA, and meeting an editor who had actually read one of my books. And I thought, you're one of like 3. And she said, man, I love your voice. Have you ever thought about putting a romance into it? And my response was no. And she said, how about putting a romance into it? So I went back to work and just sort of revised and added characters. And there was my Brethren of the Coast series.
What year was this, Barb?
God almighty, 2001, 2002.
Early. Yeah.
So Evelyn, as I always say.
Evelyn, I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to interview you. So I know you write romance. So you tell me, what made you decide to write romance?
Oh, I like the happily ever after. And I think everybody wants to fall in love.
Oh, of
I
course.
mean, we color it different things, and it you know, we have different flavors, but everybody wants to fall in love. It's the one thing that everyone wants. You want to see and be seen, you
Yeah.
know. So
As a human being, that's part of our
mhm.
nature.
Yeah, the biggest universal truth. And I also like grew up on the you know, like the dime Harlequins. There was a box. My girlfriend was a worked as a library aide at our
Oh.
small town library, and they had a box outside the door where people would drop the romances that they were done with. They didn't even bother to shelve them. They just, you know, like you could put them in there, and then you could take them, and nobody had to know that you were taking them. So I would, I would fill
Keeping
up
them
my
secret.
yeah, I'd fill up my backpack with those and then read them in chemistry class. You know, because
I can remember my grandmother sitting there reading those. She
Mhm.
loved Dorothy Garlock. Do you remember Dorothy Garlock?
I
Yes,
don't.
I do.
She used to sit there with a dog-eared Dorothy Garlock novel that she got from the library, and that was my first exposure to actually a romance novel. I was like, oh, and then later on I started reading them. So that was my grandmother's influence for sure.
Ladies,
Westerns.
this was like
Western.
this was every bit as good as I thought it was going to be, and we could talk forever and ever and ever. And if you want to do this again tomorrow or next week or any other time, I would be more than happy to. I'd be more than happy to do it. But I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us today. Can you just
Thank
do
you for asking.
a really quick? Let me know what's coming up next for you. I know, Barbara, you've got one more book in this series.
I've got one more book on this contract for Dragonblade called The Accidental Hero. And then I have characters to do 3 more, but I think I probably got to talk to Kat about that first.
Start writing. Just start writing. Jeez.
I feel like you didn't talk to Kat, and that's just fine.
Yeah, you seriously need an invitation, Barbara? Just start writing.
The setup for book 4 is actually partially coming up in the 3rd book.
Perfect.
You had it mentioned in book 1. You had another mention in book 2. You see a little bit more of the heroine in book 3, just a little, just sort of a little bit more of an introduction, and then that's the setup for book 4. You will see the setup for book 4, just like the epilogue was the opening chapter, the scene 1. That is scene 1, chapter 1 for book 3, the epilogue to The Accidental Groom. Only in, of course, book 3, it's from the perspective of Lord Michael.
See, then you hook me before I even get to the new book. I love that. It takes some of the sting out of finishing the book that you just finished when you get the new people right there waiting for you. So
you get the whole setup, sweetie.
Awesome. Awesome. And Kathryn, I know you have so many books that it's hard for me to keep track of, but I know the Leviathan is coming. I'm super excited about that one. What's up next for you?
Okay, so in November, this is November. I'm releasing one of my DeWolfpack Generations, one of the sons of DeWolf, the grandsons. That's coming out the end of the month. And then next year starts my brand new series. The Leviathan is the kickoff to the Black Church Knights. And the Black Church Knights are it's kind of an elite training school for knights.
Mm-hmm.
They will even take women if they're good enough. So this is kind of a no rules nightly training ground, and I'm really excited about launching that. I haven't launched a new series in about 4 years, so this is a kickoff for a brand new series. I'm very excited.
That's an auto buy.
Yeah, like
Thank
we
you.
have to talk about a launch strategy for that, because I was so excited when I saw the pre-order for it, and that it was brand new. So
Good.
Awesome. So I'm going to say the same thing that I say every week, which is you want to get your Dragonblade books right away, because they are the best deal on pre-order and release. For both Barb and Kathryn's books, you want to get them right away if you want them anywhere other than Kindle, because they're available wide just for a very, very brief period of time, and then you can grab them in Kindle Unlimited. Ladies, thank you again for taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And a delight.
And thank you for doing this every week, Evelyn. You are
it's my favorite thing.
You are a great host. You really are. So thank you so much for doing this.
I love it. I love getting to talk to authors. It's my favorite thing. So
good.
All right, ladies. Everybody else, we'll see you back here at the same time next week.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.